Welcome to LND today.
Thank you, Kiran.
So you've come a long way in your professional career. How has the journey been so far?
Very interesting, challenging.
Uh-huh.
Ups and downs have been there, but I think it's been a great learning experience professionally as well as a person. I think I have evolved far more than where I started,
Right.
and still evolving.
Still evolving, of course. It is something that keeps going on, right? So how did it all start for you?
So the beginning was my internship, I would say. This was a 2.5 month internship with Dunlop. That was way back in 1991 and 1990 actually. And when I did my internship there. So it's been quite exciting. I was in the corporate office, then I was moved to the plant where it was very different facets of HR, and then there was some exposure to the other functions as well. And later on, of course, my first job was with Ispat Industries Ltd.
So this was in the early 90s, you said?
Yes, of course.
So how has HR as a function changed from 90s as we see it now?
Drastically.
If you could throw some light on how it used to be when you were an intern.
It has definitely changed a lot. The core remains the same. Of course, some things have remained consistent, but there is a lot of change, and the change for the better. It used to be called personnel in those years. It was not HR, and then came in the word HR, and HRD meant training and development largely, and there were some other interventions. So it has really changed, as in it used to be more rule oriented. It used to be more administrative in nature, and they were the custodians of labor laws, processes, which is all very good and sound. However, the customer orientation, that was a little less. That's what has changed a lot. Of course, what has changed is technology in HR, of course.
Sure.
Right, from those long registers and files, and now everything is online.
It makes life much
faster,
more easier,
convenient,
faster, and again, the accuracy aspect of certain things is taken care of. So you said you worked in the corporate as well as on the plant side with Dunlop when you were interning. How was that experience? How was it different? Was it different in the corporate side and vis-a-vis the plant side?
Yes, it was very different. Dunlop House was an iconic building, and it was a heritage building. Unfortunately, it got burned down, and there is another building in its place which has been brought up in the same design. So it used to be more like it was a typically British environment which was there, classical English environment which was there, and definitely hierarchical to a large extent. But yes, a lot of sophistication and polish used to be there among people. The interactions which were there. The corporate floor was just like a 5-star hotel. People then also used to come in their black suits and this thing. Whereas in the factory, it was utterly different.
Chalk and cheese.
Chalk and cheese, and where you were in the plant, and of course the air conditioning was the first difference, of course, which you experienced, and the uniforms were different. Of course, there were uniforms in the plant. The interactions were very different, but they were more grounded in the plant, of course, and it was the bread and butter of the business.
And you interned, this was during your internship period. So did it scare you in some sense, especially in the plant where it was not what you saw in what you must have learned in your college?
Yes, so I would say less than scared. It was more of disillusionment to start with, because I thought I would be going and making decisions and be in the leadership role. What I had studied was about decision-making models and leadership and stuff, whereas what I was doing was something very mundane stuff. Gradually, of course, I realized that by undergoing the rigor of that routine stuff, be it the preparing the personal files, the forms, salary data, the time machine, one really becomes meticulous, methodical, and that vision starts from there. You definitely have to go through the grind. It makes you a far better professional. So that, yes, and in the plant, of course, because there were two unions, INTUC and CITU, and this was in Calcutta, near Calcutta the factory was, and it was quite different. So a little scare, I would say, but then gradually when you learn to deal with situations and people which are very different from what you have been in and what you have thought of, I think that's a great learning experience, and you start enjoying it.
And so, were you always very clear in your mind that you wanted to be in this line, HR especially?
Largely yes, but not fully clear. But once I started working, I was sure I wanted to be here.
Anything that drew you towards HR?
One was the interest in people, of course, and getting along with people. The other thing was, of course, wanted to do something for the society. So in some way, HR appeared to a student's mind then that maybe it was for people we were doing something, which you do to a large extent. And I would say that was it, yeah.
So from Dunlop to Ispat,
yeah,
two different, very varied industries.
Yeah.
How was that transition?
Yeah, though the industry was tires to steel, but both were manufacturing industries, so there was some commonality also. Geographically also they were set apart from the east to the west. I was in, the first assignment was in Pune, near Pune. There was a factory in Sanaswadi. So that's where I was placed. And I was in the plant most part of those 8 years which I was there in Ispat. So I spent most of my life in the plant. I used to live in the colony, and that really integrated me with the local population. I learned the local language, which is Marathi, and became largely proficient in it. And I got along very well with people. It was a requisite for an IR, industrial relations role back then. Importance of IR remains, but it has become diminished, and largely because the unions are not what they used to be, and there are far more employment opportunities in India today, which is better. So that's why it's changed.
So when we talk about unions, any incidents that you can remember of which was a little tricky, which you could handle?
Yeah. So the first one which I recall was, and there's a lot I learned from that incident, was not only about the union, but how the managerial personnel, as they used to be called then, they were interacting and doing. So the BRF, the Bloom Reheating Furnace of Ispat, that for some reason, despite the best of the global consultants, it could not get up and running. There was a problem. So I got deep into it because I was given this task by the management and the senior vice president HR at that point of time, that it is not possible technically that this is not getting done. So I got into depth and I made friends with the union leaders and many workers as well as many of the officials. Then we found out something, I found out something very strange and discussed it with my other colleagues, and we developed a strategy around it. We identified that there was a little hobnobbing between one of the general manager production and a section of the union leaders. And unfortunately, there was a regional bias which was being harbored, and that was the reason, because the top leadership was from a different region. So that is why they were trying to jeopardize it. So that was a strange learning for me, because I was one of the beginners. And then how we were able to address that, and unfortunately we had to let go of this leader. We had to convince, a lot of communication, and first we tried with the general manager production as well. Somehow it didn't work. Then we worked out with the workers and tried to show them the interest of theirs, which was aligned with the company's interest. And that's how they saw it, and we succeeded.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you so much for your time and those valuable insights. It was a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you, Kiran. I had a nice conversation.
Thank you so much.